Let's just get Megan's consent too, and then we'll be ready.
Oh, there's Megan.
Megan.
Hi, Megan.
Hi, Megan.
Hey, Megan. I don't see Megan.
Are we all going to mute when one person's talking? So we don't back, please.
I think we'll be quiet. If you want to turn on your mics and, wave or something if you want Kate to call on you, right, Kate? That's the way we worked YSB yesterday.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Megan, we just need you to know that you're being recorded. This is going to be posted live, and we just need your consent that it's okay.
Okay, yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Fine with me.
All right.
Okay. Well, I'd like to call the meeting to order. It is 7:02. Dee Dee, if you'll take attendance, please.
No, I guess I'm hearing an echo. Does anyone else have a phone on? Okay. I know Kate's here, Kathy Grant, Kristen
Here.
Trahan, Arica, Megan, Chris.
I'm
Scott
here.
is not with us, and that's everybody. And Kate. We're good.
Excellent. So one thing I didn't think about is the Pledge of Allegiance. Does anybody have a flag nearby?
I sure do.
Okay, come on, Kristen. Do you want to just say it, or do you want to get it?
Yeah, we can stand up and do it. We probably good with that.
Okay.
Face away from everybody.
Get out of my hole. I pledge allegiance
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic and one nation under God,
visible,
liberty and justice for all.
Stretch the legs. Okay. So next up would be any citizens comment, but Dee Dee, you said that there was nothing submitted, correct?
None received.
Okay. And that would include guests?
There was none anyways on the agenda.
Okay.
Hey,
So-
Kate, can I request that everybody does mute because it's there's a wicked echo and it's very distracting.
Okay.
Do you mind?
No,
I think
I
it's,
don't mind if I can figure out how.
yeah, Kathy, she just has to mute it.
If you hover at the bottom of your screen, there's three buttons in the
Okay.
middle of your screen. The one on the left is your mute button, but whoever's the host can mute you if they want to.
so Dee Dee,
Did I-
can you?
oh, you're muted.
Okay. Okay, thank you for the housekeeping. Is that better? Okay, so moving on to the consent agenda, we'll need a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, moving along to administrative reports. We'll begin with our principal's report with me.
Sorry, I had to unmute myself there. So as you know, you received my report. I included in the report some steps that we took for COVID. And I just wanted to give an update on that. And that's why I included that as part of my report this time. There wasn't much to report, otherwise since we've been closed. So as you know, we've been closed since March 16th. And, we've taken guidance and steps from the State Department of Ed and the local RESCs on how to approach distance learning and continuous learning with our grade level. So I kind of gave you an outline there of what steps and initiatives we've done in Voluntown We were not one of the ones to rush and start right away. We really wanted to see what was happening with other school districts before we made any significant changes for kids and their learning. We have made big strides in technology. We've provided just a lot of families to get them online and to get them learning. It's been great to see that shift. You know, in Voluntown, we really pride ourselves on being part. You know, we love technology, but we value that interaction between adult and child also. So for some of our teachers and kids, it's not what they're used to in a structured way. So we've really tried to make really baby steps, and it's a lot about parent comfort and child comfort and being able to get them to work together and be able to do the things that we're asking them to do to at least maintain their learning and offer them some new learning. So we've done, you know, very well for that. We have also, you know, partnered with Griswold and some surrounding towns. Our meal service is through Griswold. It's on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And so I always encourage people, please go down and use it if they can. They do it 2 days at a time, and they'll give you 2 meals for 2 days, and then they'll help you for over the weekend too. So a lot of families have accessed that. It was a great community piece going together there with Griswold and being able to do it. We, our maintenance director and myself and our central office, we're constantly working with whatever the governor's orders are about returning staff, about being in buildings, about cleanliness. So we are constantly trying to just manage what's happening within our building, and in respects to wearing face masks, remaining apart from people, and those types of things. So one of the recommendations, you know, is to have a point person. So really, Rachel and I go back and forth, and we try to really maintain, you know, who's coming in the building. We have a documented list, so that way then if there ever needed to be contact tracing, we have that information ready to be handled. One of the highlights recently was we delivered signs to our 8th graders from our PTO. So that was a huge thank you to the PTO. They put on a lot of things for our 8th graders. They typically pay for part of banquet, and they do some graduation awards. So for them, it was just a way that they could be part of their last, you know, time here in Voluntown. So they had purchased the signs. We had gone around and delivered those out to yards. I had told our staff I haven't been on a bus in like 6 years. I forget what it's like to actually ride a bus, you know. So it was fun. And then we just have, you know, our regular, as you scroll down, our regular highlights. So everyone has selected a high school. We've had kids. So part of the high school process is if you're selected to tech schools, you then have to, you know, make that decision. Are you going to the tech school? Are you going to the public high school? So that kind of has washed itself out now. So kids have made their choices. We're moving forward now with the full registration process for them. So that requires just paperwork and items from our office. Before we left, we actually raised over $5,000 for Pennies for Patients. So that just in those 2 weeks of March that we started, it was great. We had gotten some donations from online once we had closed. So it put us over like $93,000 in our lifetime at our school for raising for Pennies for Patients. So it went to a good cause. Just so you know, our SBAC has been obviously canceled for the year. Teacher evaluation was canceled for a year. So those types of things, trying to close out those things, you know, at this point, and just figuring out, okay, what does that look like and do? And so we're working on those pieces for our faculty and our end of the year items. I think, you know, that's really what I wanted to highlight. I also want to highlight the Youth Service Bureau, 2 things that they have done recently. One was they also hosted, they wanted to do something for our seniors. So obviously our seniors go to 7 different high schools. So it's very hard for high schools to support kids who are in all of these towns. So what they did was they purchased signs for our high school students. They're about the same amount, about 30 of them. And they dropped them off to high school students. And it was great because so many came outside to get their signs. You would think that high school kids might not want that, but it was really, great to see them come out and, you know, blush and say thank you. So it was really nice from the YSB. They've also been doing virtual programs and offering them to our 4th grade and up students. At this time, they have been working with their science teachers and offering things that they can do online through NESS. NESS was one of the programs that would have been coming now at this time. So NESS has developed some great things that they wanted to try out. And so we offered. They had full attendance on each one. It was like 25 slots that they could have for each one. So it really, really worked out well. And the kids really enjoyed it. It was a 2-hour. I got a lot of feedback from parents how much their kids loved that, rather than just doing, you know, science, you know, at home. They did that. So it was really good. So anybody have any questions?
I just have a comment that it was so nice to see you all drive by and honk and wave. Although my son was like, really? Mom? But I was there, dragged my mother. And so he was utterly embarrassed, but in his heart, he really appreciated it. It was so great. It was awesome. Thank you. We appreciate that.
It was a good time. It was a good time.
Amy, even you guys dropping off packets, it's very meaningful to see you guys. Just, you know, my children especially, and a couple of my friends' children were just so excited to just have you guys drop those things off and just see that little bit of human contact and just let you guys know, you know, having you guys let us know that you were thinking about our children. It was very meaningful.
They like to do it, and you know, bus drivers, they like to use that air horn. So if you hear it at 8 o'clock in the morning, that's us. That's them driving by. You know, they see all kids every day, and I think it's really hard for them too. You know, they take your kids and they drive them and they protect them on the bus, and it's just as hard for each individual person that, you know, whatever their role is in the system, it's hard for them in some manner. And I think they look forward to it, and especially kids who. Sometimes we find that kids that aren't getting packets are still outside of their bus stop and they're still outside waving, you know, just because they know that we're going to come by. So it's been really good.
Amy, I had a suggestion. I don't know. I've seen this in other communities where they do a drive-by for the teachers or the staff. And, you know, if we want to, it's even something we could think more holistically as a town to, like the essential workers or whatnot. I know we can't do parades or certain things that are mandated against, you know, considering a circumstance, but maybe something to think about of having an effort to give the community a chance safely to say thank you to teachers and the staff. And
we have been talking about, we've seen a lot of like inverted parades where like, teachers come, so teachers come and staff come, and then you invite if parents want to drive through, you know.
Right.
So I'm thinking, you know, when the weather's nice, you know, we'll hopefully do something like that. Just people, you know, kids need closure. They just want to see a face, you know, your face. That
absolutely.
And so I think that'll work. I will say for 8th grade graduation, you know, that is something in Voluntown that's a really big deal. And so for our 8th graders, we have started planning, you know, we have our caps and gowns. We are waiting for the governor to, you know, open up a little bit more so we can have pictures done outside, so we can have some form of semblance to the stage, you know, very controlled, for individual families to be able to do that, because we feel it's important that, you know, we don't want this class just to miss out. Oh, they're 8th graders. Well, it's special for them. They've been here 13 years. And, you know, when your kid has gone to the end, you know, you want to see that, you want that piece for them, and we want that piece for them. So that's in the works for us right now. And hopefully soon after May 20th, we can, you know, kind of put that in motion. And what we'll do is make it we'll video it and have photography and make it into a video. So then it's streamed like it would be a graduation.
Excellent. Okay, are you pretty much wrapped up, Amy?
I'm good.
Okay, thank you so much. And really thank you all you're doing during this time. It's just so impressive, and we really appreciate it as a board. And I guess we'll hear from Lloyd now and see what's happening on his end.
Thank you. the department's been engaged in providing one-on-one lessons to the kids that they are case managers for. We've really been impressed with how things are going, and the teachers are really excited about how the kids have engaged and how many we're reaching. I think almost all of the students that they need to reach out to, it's working. And last week we had a conversation and sent a letter out to a small number of families as a group that would like to have like a group meeting virtually on Fridays to give the kids something different to look forward to. So we've been using Google Hangout. The department meets weekly with Amy. We have a Wednesday morning meeting, and the sharing and the planning have gone well. At a recent meeting that I attended virtually, the Bureau Chief, Brian Klimkowitz for Special Education for the state, talked about ESY summer school and mentioned we should probably be planning virtual summer school in addition to what we usually do face-to-face. So last week we put our plans together. So we are planning to offer a virtual summer school to the students who we usually provide summer school to, and letters to the families went out this week. We also made a decision that usually we don't invite the 8th graders, but because of the nature of the needs and some of the kids in that particular class, a few of them will be included too. So we're looking at June 29th through July 30th, Monday through Thursday, 4 days a week. And the students will each have a 30-minute lesson every day, during those 4 days. We've begun having PPTs again. Our priority are the 8th to 9th graders, and some high needs cases that I prioritized to get done right away. But then we're starting to do catch up on the meetings that the annual reviews we missed starting in the end of March. So we've been working with the other schools that some of our kids attend, plus our own staff, trying to schedule them at a time that doesn't overload my department, because they're pretty busy right now. Let's see. I think those are the main items. Things are rolling along. Parents are responsive to our efforts to have virtual meetings through Google. One observation I'd like to share with you. Historically, it's been very challenging to have students with learning disabilities be accepted to attend our tech schools. And it was quite eye-opening and very pleasing this year. The powers that be put the administrative staff of the tech schools together with the Bureau of Special Education consultants and other people to answer the question, what will it take for the tech schools to be able to service a broader range of students with diverse needs? And I have to say the tenor of those PPTs was entirely different. It was no longer an issue of trying to defend what the student had, or there were no barriers. When we mentioned a need a student had, the special ed department chairman from either Ellis or Norwich would say, well, we have this resource, or we have that. They've instituted co-teaching. So they've increased the special education staff, the assistive technology resources, and the curriculum supports for our kids. So, so my sermon that I used to give at PPTs, as I asked parents, what's the high school plan you have, and I used to be cautionary about choosing the tech schools because it was harder for them to meet the needs of our kids. Now is going to take on a different flavor, because the one thing the child really needs to bring to the table at those schools, and every high school, but especially those schools because of their high standards, is they're willing to work and get the work done and be very responsible. And I feel confident that the group of kids that we sent have that characteristic, but I'll have to start honing my public speaking sermon to the families as we start getting people ready, that if they if they want the tech school to be on their list of choice, the kids have to realize that every assignment is important. They really need to take seriously learning how to do courses online, etc. But I feel really good about their welcoming attitude towards kids with disabilities now at our tech schools. I think that's it. Thank you. Any questions?
I do. Lloyd, do we have kids going to Camp Q per their guidelines that they just released?
Yes. From what I know, as of yesterday, Camp Q is going to be open. They're going to be open for only 1 2-week session per camper. We won't be allowed to provide transportation. The family has to provide the transportation. The family has to arrive with masks on and submit to a health check, both the child and the driver. If anyone is ill, they send them right home. The driver has to stay at the camp for as long as it takes for their child to have a health check. And the weeks are determined by the child's age. They've divided the summer up into, like I said, 2-week sessions. And last year we had 2 students go. This year, I think one of the students, the family is choosing not to go, but the other family, my understanding, is choosing to go. And as is their usual routine, we have to provide a paraprofessional to accompany the child while they're there for those 2 weeks. And like we usually do, that position will be posted, and hopefully one of our staff at least will agree to do that. I'm confident that that will happen. But I was very pleased that they decided to be open. Unfortunately, because of all of the social distancing, they had to drastically reduce the number of kids they're going to be able to serve. Anything else?
Lloyd, I know you said that your staff is PPT season's coming up for our kiddos. What we're doing is NFA is kind of taking a look at to see who just would require amendments to their IEPs versus having PPTs. What is your plan? Are you going to hold full-on PPTs for any annuals or tries or program reviews?
I'd like to hold the full PPTs. The number we have to do for our high schools is fairly small.
Okay.
I think we have 2 new ones going to NFA and 3 to Griswold, and they also falls in their annual review slot too. So if the student is going and they don't need an annual review, then I've prepared the families for an amendment.
Okay.
And they've been fairly responsive to that.
Okay.
The problem, it's interesting how the Bureau's positioning and advice has changed over time. Because initially, they said, just delay having meetings until we reopen and then do amendments. And now that we're not going to be open this school year, we're all cognizant of the fact that we just can't hold off and then try to get them all done in September. So the general plan is, even if let's say a student's annual review is in March and we couldn't hold it, so we hold it in May or June. There are 2 dates that are important: the date that the new IEP begins and the date that that IEP expires. And we've been advised that the new IEP should begin the day of the PPT, but expire the date of the previous PPT's anniversary. So if we hold a PPT in June for one that which should have been held in March, it will only run through next March. That way, the PPTs will be the spread throughout the 10 school months will be fairly well balanced, rather than having I'll call it a pileup 1 month or another. If we stuck to the 12-month concept for all PPT renewals. So my secretary is going to be pretty busy scheduling meetings, and because of the way we're using the Google Hangout, she has to be a guide on the side and make sure everyone who's trying to get into the meeting gets into the meeting, and then I conduct it. So it's good that people can't see everything, because I've got one laptop that I use for its camera, and I have another one that I have running for IEP Direct, which is the document generator. So it's been interesting. I had a few last week, and they worked out fine.
Yes, I feel your pain. Yes.
And one of the parents participated by her phone. She was on a break from her work, went out to the car, turned her phone on, called in, and we saw her because she was using that form, not just the telephone call in. So people are being flexible. It's good. Thank you.
Thank you, Lloyd. Yeah. Any other questions from anyone that needs to unmute? If you're okay.
I just got a text message that people are having a hard time viewing on the Google unless they have a school account. So I don't know.
Can they call in by? They can call in by phone.
I don't think the phone number was available on the agenda. But
I don't have a school account like that I log in with.
And you
I don't
don't
have
okay. Maybe
It was kind of going in and out for me though as well.
Okay.
I'm on my regular Gmail account, not the school, and it's okay.
Okay.
We all got special invitations. The other pub.
Yeah.
I don't know, Amy, if you had a chance to maybe text Jim and
Sure.
just let him know that there's an issue, and maybe Jim can correct that. Okay.
Okay, Adam, thank you. Are you
I'll
ready?
try to look up the phone number real quick on my calendar, but I'll get back to you on that.
Should we pause or continue?
I would continue, Kate, because this is
It's
going to be
recorded. You
training.
can watch it afterwards. It's going to be posted, the recording. I mean, I can try to provide that information. I don't know how they're contacting you, Tracy, but I'll give it to you in a second.
I like your cat though. Okay, Adam. So are you ready for your administration
Sure,
report?
yes. Okay, just to let you know, the calendar of events for May and June are published there in your packet. I have to say thank you to Amy and Lloyd. I think that we have been communicating 24/7 during this time, and there isn't a time when we don't try to contact each other and take care of such little details. One little comment about the tech schools. Our attorney, Fred Dorsey, was hired by the state to put the rulings in place to enhance the technical schools and their work with special ed. And projected for next year, we have 13 at Ellis Tech and 18 at Norwich Tech. Those numbers aren't on the enrollment report. That is the next item on my report. And I will tell you, you can see the numbers down below that the tech schools have been increased. In our 4-year summary, there was, you can see that on the report, 28 this year, 23 last year, 15, and 17. So it has gone up significantly. The enrollment report is there. We are dropping in our enrollment. If you look at the K through pre-K through 5 enrollment, we now have it says 265 students, but we have 16 non-residents, so therefore it's going to be 245 students. And of course, 4 years ago, we had 279. So we have reduced faculty to make accommodations for declining enrollment. The Board of Ed has received funding, and in the bottom part of the budget, it will indicate that over the years, we've returned $43,905.26 thus far this year. There should be some additional money coming in. Last year, we returned $96,000, and the year before it was $77,000. Those are funds that are put into the general account. So over the last 3 years, that equaled about $217,000. I gave you an updated calendar for the year, and our last day of school is projected for Thursday, June 18th. And then the next thing on the list is a CABE liaison newsletter, an update on that. The next thing is that there's a pandemic electronic benefits transfer. This is a program brochure, and we had to give the addresses. The lunch program is mailing cards to people that they can use, and it's a continuation of allowing them to have access for some nutritional program. I gave you the official declaration of the town of Voluntown emergency that Tracy issued. And then I just wanted you to know that we did have a leave of absence due to the request for COVID-19, and there was a special request for taking some time at a certain amount of salary, but I did honor that, and wanted to inform the board of that. One of the things that Kate and I talked about was having virtual meetings with regards to the committees. And over the next month, we'll try to get in some type of virtual meeting for wellness, insurance with Liz Massicott, of course, a safety meeting. We will have technology. There's going to be an indoor air quality and tools for schools meeting, transportation meeting to review our annual transportation costs, and curriculum steering committee to go over the overall programs that we have. I think I'm all set, Kate.
Are there any questions for Adam from his update?
I have a question, Adam. With the proposed 18th dismissal, how many student days do we have in that? Is it 177?
I believe so. It's in compliance with the adjustment that the governor issued. So we picked June 18th as a closing date, and I believe that makes the matches the criteria. I've heard some school districts might be closing a little bit earlier.
We are. So I'm curious what the guidelines are, because I know teachers have to prepare their end of the year report cards as well as placement cards and for next year, and whatever cumulative file things that they have to do. Like, I'm curious when that might happen.
We had some work days after that, Amy.
So we'll, what we'll do is we are going to issue a plan on the actual active online learning ending on June 12th. And then planning for those last 4 days would be for our teacher catch up, for all of our services to tie up their loose ends. We will be producing report cards. So we'll be using that time to do all those things that we would normally do while we have kids and we're in the building and able to do that during teacher prep and planning times. We're able to do it at that point, after that.
I think that makes sense too. Also for families who are feeling overwhelmed,
Yes.
you know, and just barely hanging on. I think that would be appreciated, just to, you know, give some extra time to catch up.
And there are, you know, and there are a lot of fun things that, you know, kids are missing out on. So we did talk about, you know, that last week, if especially our little people, you know, offering fun scavenger hunts to go outside and just offering fun things that kids can do, you know, at that point. Families are stressed, and I am a big, you know, a preacher on, you know, we have to be compassionate and understand that everybody's life is very different right now. So mine is very different than yours and to the person sitting next to you. And, you know, just taking into consideration that people are just doing the best they can. And I think it would be helpful for parents and families to know that there is an end in sight. And, you know, we all experience it, and I try to let people know that, you know, I experience the same thing that other families experience. You know, I have my own 2 small children. You know, you try to work with them. You're trying to work at home. And so we want to honor that for families and be able to, you know, provide an education, but also understand that it's hard. It's hard.
The interesting thing is that there was some professional development days that we didn't take. We're doing student activities, so you can see how it might average out.
I have a quick comment. I would think with the, as far as returning money to the town, especially this year with the closed building, no extracurricular activities taking place, no transportation whatsoever, there should be a surplus in this year's budget that we can return to the town.
That's something that we will go ahead and review. And when we get to the budget presentation, I'll have more information on that, Chris.
Hi, I had 2 things. My first thing is, if I know we had discussed previously that there was no representation of the board on the transportation committee. So as long as those meetings are virtual, if the board doesn't have an issue, I don't mind representing the board on that committee. So if you'd like to add me to that. My other question is kind of based maybe more for Amy is, do you, and maybe even Lloyd, do you anticipate now that your teachers and faculty are getting more used to the Google Hangouts and things like that, do you see that being utilized more for the future in terms of PPTs, committee meetings, and things like that? Is this something we think will be an option to our parents going forward for these types of things?
I think it's quite possible. I think that, you know, you always want to be cognizant of the fact that, you know, parents do work 9 to 5, like when schools are in session, and it makes it really difficult when, you know, you're trying to mesh a teacher planning time and working around a parent schedule and having a parent come in. So I do think now that, you know, you've dipped your toe in the water a little bit and understand how it works and how it's protected, we just want to make sure privacy is always protected when we do those types of things. But I think it is very plausible to be able to do that. You know, we value face-to-face, but it's in this day and age, it's not always what can happen all the time. And so I can't speak to Lloyd, but I do think it's, you know, definitely a point to consider moving forward, especially now doing it almost 6 to 8 weeks, you know, or so come the end of this, 10 weeks. It's gotten a lot easier than it, you know, the beginning was really hard, but it's much easier now. I would assume, Lloyd, you probably feel the same in some sense.
Yeah, I think with the addition of a camera for the table, we could have parents not only, but we've had parents participate by phone many times in the past, but with the technology that we have now, parents could actually see people, and if we have a laptop set up with Google Meets on it, we'd be able to see the parent too. So I think just as this broader technological resource is available for classroom teachers, it'll be something that'll be available for us too, so that parents who only can get a half-hour break from work and want to participate in a PPT, hopefully they'll be able to do it a little more meaningfully than just grabbing the telephone. I want to add one comment to the discussion about the end of the school year. I'm hoping that we can carve out some time for the teachers to do some planning for next school year. The experts are telling us this isn't going to go away July 1st and never return. So I would hope we'd have time for our teachers to, whether they plan special units that they slip in or incorporate more technological instruction on a regular basis that can be expanded to 100% for a week or two if we have to shut down in October, whatever. It's revolutionizing our business, our teaching, and it's causing people to think differently about providing instruction, and hopefully we'll be able to give them some time in June to do some planning for next year, because unfortunately this pandemic isn't going to just leave us quickly.
One of the things that we've done is that we have the capacity to make quick adjustments, and this is what's happened. We're not dependent upon all sorts of other additional things. If we need to make an adjustment with teachers and working with things, we've been able to implement things in our school district very, very quickly. One of the things with technology is that we've had to expand it. We've had to make some additional purchases, and that has helped us increase our capacity. I wasn't going to mention it, but I've had some thoughts about what if we have a snow day, perhaps we can have a virtual day, and that might help us with consistency with the schedule and some other things. But the issue here is that we've taken great care with distributing technology to students, and they might not have that at home going back and forth on a regular basis. So there's a lot of little surrounding issues, but there's also a lot of positives that can come from this.
Yeah, I echo that. I think that we just have to stay mindful. I'm curious about teacher development plans, if there's PD, professional development going on, if it's still, or if there's some webbing of this new world order being implemented, on a PD level.
Mm-hmm.
If that's for Amy or not.
Sorry, I caught most of it. It was cutting in and out. So I'm assuming you're asking about online, like PD for them. I'm sure in the coming months, there are a lot, I get, so many emails a day that are just all about online learning and different things. And it really, to find quality, you have to sort through what it looks like. And I think our teachers are, constantly looking for what is the best model? How much is too much? What can I do to, to help this child and to reach them? So I think in the coming months, a lot of places will have a lot more PD on that, because it really is new. This is like the new wave of, what is happening. So hopefully there will be some.
Oh, thank you for that. Now that we've wrapped up the I'd like to echo my thanking you, Amy, but the entire staff, the teachers, obviously the Teacher Appreciation Week was last week, and hopefully you felt the love there, but just generally through the challenges of COVID and everything that has happened, it is certainly just a huge shout out to you. We're so appreciative. Help parents and children through this time. So with that comment stated, we can move on to old business.
Kate, you seem to be chopping out a lot. Is everybody hearing that?
Yeah, there's some breaking up,
Yeah.
and I'm losing her picture. I don't know if anybody else is.
Yeah. Hey, Kate, why don't you try shutting your camera off? Maybe it'll help to stream what you're saying better.
Well, try it now. You just turned your mic off and on. Try that now, Kate. Oh, she's off.
Maybe she's gonna relog in. Wait a minute.
That happened to me the last meeting. It was windy up here at Econkill and knocked me out. Well, it was either this or a Youth Service Bureau meeting. It happened.
Chris, can I ask
Frozen in
the back of you while we're waiting for Kate?
Some World War II rifles, one with a grenade launcher. Yeah, it's
Oh,
my
all
left.
right. I saw it in back, and I did not know what it was.
I'm a collector and I gunsmith.
Yeah. It looked like a spear.
All right. Yeah.
No. That's a Japanese rifle, in fact, Type 99 from World War II.
My husband would be very impressed.
Tracy.
Adam, do you want me to pick up for her in her absence, or do you want?
No, she should be back on in just a moment, hopefully.
As far as other people
Yes.
Viewing that don't have Google accounts, I guess there's a way that I can send them an invite if I have their email address. I just kind of
Well, I haven't heard from anyone else yet, and the person that was trying to get in, they got in through their kid's school account.
Okay.
So.
All right.
So they got in.
I'll have to look into that for the next meeting. But
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I wonder if Kate's out shaking the
She
internet.
just
line.
texted me. She's reloading her computer. She's letting it restart.
Okay.
We could say yesterday was Adam's birthday.
Happy
Thank you.
birthday.
Happy birthday.
Thank
Happy
you.
birthday. Do we get to sing?
Sure, let's sing.
You don't want to hear
You
me.
started it off.
No.
You started it off.
Wow.
30 again. Must feel good.
Yes. It's too bad with Kate's line.
Okay. Shouldn't take too long.
Have a snack and fill up the water break.
Cheers. Yes.
Am I back?
Hi, Kate.
Hi. Sorry.
Kate, Jim said that if you keep freezing, if you turn off your video, you should be able to stream better. Like Dee Dee said.
Okay. So just let me know if you can't hear me.
No,
I'll do that.
Hear you.
You don't need to see me now. Okay, so we were moving on to the old business item number 1, the budget.
Yes, and I sent you an updated budget today, And the proposal from March 12th was about $63,000. And we went through the budget, and we now have the budget proposal of $39,063. That's a 0.58% increase. And then going down through the list that's explained in the budget report, that's all negotiated salaries for teachers, classified faculty, and staff, with the non-certified still being negotiated. It's the projected cost of all outplacements. It's the projected cost of all high school tuitions, a projected increase for the cost of health insurance at 5%, all energy, diesel, fuel, and gasoline, and electricity, continuation of the October 11th, 2018 board decision to eliminate a full-time assistant principal. Continuation of the budget savings by eliminating a classroom teacher last year due to declining enrollment. Now, for next year, we have the elimination of the SRBI tutor. And that's a person who is currently working with the students identified for scientifically research-based interventions. What we're going to do, and this is a change from the last budget proposal we gave you, we're going to eliminate a 7th and 8th grade writing teacher due to the declining enrollment, and reassign the person to take on all the responsibilities of SRBI, as well as continuing with some library responsibilities. Also, with some savings, we have the elimination of the current full-time school counselor position. And in the last budget presentation, we had that position at 6/10. Unfortunately, Emily McEwen, who is the counselor, tragically passed away. And what we're doing now is I have it in the packet for later on to reassign the social worker from 0.5 to a 1.0 FTE position, and to reassign responsibilities for counseling and also social worker responsibilities in that one position. We have a proposed reduction in transportation due to declining enrollment and efficiency initiatives. And we're one of the only school districts right now with our own transportation department, and this has actually offered us flexibility and cost savings to meet the needs of students. There's been a lot of discussion with other school districts spending enormous amounts of time renegotiating their transportation contracts. We've had technology upgrades in this budget proposal based on an obsolescence strategy for upgrades. But again, our technology budget has not increased greatly because we wind up making adjustments as we're going along. We had some capital improvement requests for the town, and what we've done is we've delayed those for 1 year, and the building is in good shape, but we've identified some of the things that we need to do to make adjustments at this point. And this proposal does not include a foreign language teacher. Now, one of the big changes from the $63,000 budget, if you have your budgets or you printed them up, it's the first line with certified salaries. The certified salary account went up by $12,507. And that means that for next year, you will see it. The very first line in the budget was $1,389,640. Please remember that that's almost $42,000 less than what our salaries were 2 years ago. Now that $12,500 went in there, but we realized some savings from the Title I grant that we use to pay the SRBI tutor and teacher. So you will see that we'll be able to use the Title I funds, the savings we had there, into the following year, because the way the Title I grant was working, that you have to expend the funds by December 31st of the final grant year. And some of the funds we were using to cut back actually expired in December of 2021. So we will have those funds available as we move forward. There's been some savings in the outplacements, but other than that, the budget has remained the same since we gave you the proposal back, except that there have been some minor cutbacks in little areas. One of the big things was with the transportation. With the transportation, if you go to the 2700 account, the last bus payment, and that's 2700 line 442, you'll see that $52,116 is projected and proposed for next year. And if you look at the line before that, the payment is for $92,779. Now, Chris, you mentioned, are there any savings for this year? Well, we're going to use some savings to help make up the difference for that payment. So what we're doing is paying for something at the end of June to keep our budget increase to a minimum. And this is a strategy that the board has used in the past during tough financial times. This also means that in future years, we do not have a transportation cost for the lease purchase of the buses. And I anticipate that we might be able to get a number of years out of these buses because we made a quality purchase back then. So that rather than having your budget swing up and down due to transportation costs, we've been consistent. And if you look at the transportation in this line, we have $419,000 in the transportation cost, and the special ed account has gone down by 14%. So therefore, you know, the 419 and the 60,000, you've got 479. And 11 years ago, our transportation costs were $470,000. So we've projected ways to you know, to save some things, and it's been very helpful. Our transportation committee spends a lot of time reviewing repairs, wear life, and components and other things. And I've just been so impressed with what we've been able to do to really exceed any transportation contract that other school districts are developing. So this is where we are with our budget. But I also wanted to mention that we've done some things with you know, with savings. And one of the things is during this year's budget, we had and I wrote to you in my notes to the Board of Education, we've had some, it's called the CARES Act, and we're going to collect, excuse me, $32,700 or thereabouts for from the CARES Act when that comes in. So that would be an item that may help us with facing some financial challenges that may exist in the future. And I know that the legislators are talking about having a meeting. I'm not sure what they're going to come up with, you know, aid to municipalities and other types of things. But right now, our federal grants, IDEA, and our Title I grants have basically maintained that, and we have the new ESSER program, and that's the CARES Act. And then when we've had expenditures for the COVID-19, we've submitted some numbers to the town and to the tune of $86,000. And if eligible items are approved, then we've already spent this money out of our budget. That means that the town may get 75% of that to go into their savings account. So there are some things that are happening, but when I looked at the town's budget and listened to the meeting that the town was having, we right now, I think Tracy's here, but right now we may have a small property tax increase because of some of the revenues coming in. And actually the school budget goes up by 39,000. I'm not sure where the town budget is at this point, but we are going to have either no mill increase, hopefully, or very little mill increase. So this is what it would take to run the district.
On those numbers you mentioned, you kept mentioning I'm going to round it to $40,000 increase. There's also an $86,000 cut, which is a total of $126,000 that the taxpayers have to come up with, not just the $40,000 increase that you keep mentioning. I'm wondering, like, for the social worker and the counselor, if one full-time employee can do both jobs, social working and guidance counseling.
That's what that proposal says.
Right now, a social worker is probably too much of a luxury. So why can't we just have a 0.5 FTE counselor and remove the social worker from the picture?
Well, because there's certain responsibilities that they have as far as school climate, social emotional development, and there's certain requirements that we have to fulfill those needs. So what we've done is we had two wonderful people who are with us, and what we're doing is we're combining both services into the job description of the social worker, which we'll address later on. And in relationship to that, we have to make sure that we're organizing so that we can follow through. There's certain crisis intervention responsibilities that person has, and there's certain help and support that the building principal and the director of student services needs when they get into development of IEPs to give support for students.
Yeah, I don't understand how, with people out of work and the financial and economic impact this is going to have on families, that we could even fathom expecting them to pay more in taxes. It's really, I mean, talk about having emotional help and at the school, these kids of parents that can't make their mortgage payments and their tax payments. I mean, I can't imagine anything more stressful than that at home. So, I mean, I think as a board, we have to do whatever we can, and as a school, we have to do whatever we can to keep this as flat as possible, as a town, really, in general, to help this community that's going to be ravaged by this COVID-19. So the fact that we're even proposing an increase is really concerning, honestly.
The interesting thing is that our budget increase total over these four budgets has gone up about 27,000. That means that the budget increase is about $6,000 per year. So we have done well with that. The other thing is that I mentioned that there's programs coming in, the CARES Act, the FEMA reimbursement, and there could be some other things that are happening with the next stimulus package to help offer support to the town. And I think that if we establish a budget now and there are some challenges, then we would have to return to this and see what kind of adjustments that we could make. Remember, 4 years ago, we were facing $1 million cut in the ECS, and we delayed the town meeting until December 20th. And if we had to have severe cuts in the programs for children, then we would have to follow this. And the board monitors, the level of budget in each monthly meeting. But if there is a development of issues, then fine. And the school board has a budget increase. I'm not sure what the town increase is at this point, but there's going to be no property tax. Hopefully there'll be no property tax increase. And we are returning funds to the town to make up that difference on the ECS cut. The other thing that's happening is that we have some issues coming up, such as right now, the high school tuition formula. We're going to recognize a considerable savings from the NFA tuition. We're going to recognize savings from the transportation, and we're also going to recognize, as again we have done for the last few years, a reduction in staff through either retirements, attrition, or with non-renewals.
We keep talking about all the savings. Even more kids going into tech schools is a big savings because
oh, absolutely.
Yet the budget's still going up. And again, I want to make clear that with the cut, it's $126,000 that has to be made up, not just the $40,000 increase. And the declining enrollment, and it's almost, we're paying $1,000 for each kid that dropped out of school in the past 4 years with the $27,000 figure of increase. It's mind-boggling to me how this can keep going up when service provided for the amount of people is clearly going down. And especially now, we're not spending a lot of money on extracurricular activities, building usage, or transportation. I'm afraid that there's just going to be a big spend down with this surplus, and none of it's going to go back to the taxpayer. And to echo what Megan said, with COVID-19 now and uncertainty in the future with so many people out of work, the tax base is going to severely decline. We really need to tighten our belt and pinch pennies.
I have to say, I think this is a pinch penny budget. One of the problems is if you cut too much every year, you cannot sustain getting things fixed. And I do think we need a full-time social worker person there. There's going to be many more problems. There is going to be more mandated things for them to do. Amy cannot pick up a whole half position. That's basically what you're asking her to do, be a 1.5 FTE. She can become that person. We can't do all this work with one person. And we're going to be getting more money back from the feds, back from the state. And we have a lot of rainy day fund in our town to offset a mill rate increase. That's my feelings.
I don't think anybody's expecting Amy to pick up this extra 0.5 FTE. My thought process is anytime you do a budget, you pad it, whatever percentage it is, 10%, 8%, whatever. And given the economic situation right now, if there's ever a time to use it, it would be right now. That's my opinion. And, like I said, there's no intent for Amy to pick up or as herself in her office be doing an additional half FTE. It's to make it up in other areas.
Who will pick up that work?
With declining enrollment, there should be less work.
There's never less social work, especially in the middle of this. There won't be, our enrollment hasn't declined half by half. There's still all that work there. I do think there's going to be even perhaps more money come back from the state to the feds. As we get closer to the election, the feds will come up with more money and stuff. But we have a good rainy day fund. Hopefully we can offset any increase with that. We have an exceptionally large one.
If you don't,
There should not be an increase to offset a rainy day fund, and we're
right,
in.
and the rainy day fund's not huge. And the concerns that we have as the Board of Selectmen in using that money that's in there is we don't know what's going to happen for the state the next budget year. We're being told that with the casinos closed, we could lose our Mash and Ticket Fund, which is $80,000, because if they're not open, how are they going to have the money to give us? The state's not collecting the money that they use to go towards the money that they give to the town. So we have been told to anticipate not collecting all of the money that we're expecting to get to offset our budget. So originally, the Board of Selectmen had decided to use money in the undesignated fund to offset the mill rate increase. But the more that we were hearing in the projections for the next 2 years, the more we are afraid of touching that money because we might need it if we don't get the revenue we're expecting to get. If taxpayers can't with the option that we're doing this year, taxpayers have an extra 90 days to pay their taxes. So that's an extra 90 days that we're not going to get the money coming in to pay the bills that we would be getting. So we're going to need that money in the rainy day fund to do stuff with that if the money doesn't come in. And if people can't pay, we still have that money in the budget that we need to run the town. And if we understand people are in a tight spot right now. So there could be a lot of people that can't pay their taxes without a mill rate increase. So we need to make sure we have that money there to pay the bills if the money's not coming in, either in the taxes or from the revenue that we expect. So
How much is the selectmen budget going up?
the selectmen budget's going up $52,000, a little bit over, and $40,000 of that is insurance increases, workman's comp increases. It's stuff that we don't have. It's stuff that we have to pay. We're not doing the what the raises that we call, but they're cost of living increases. We're not doing that this year. The only people that are getting anything extra are the ones that have it in their contract. So there's a lot of things that we are doing. There were things that we needed to do that we're not doing next budget year because we're trying to do whatever we can not to have that increase. But it's hard. There's still things that we're obligated to pay, and we're already at a very, very tight budget for the town. There's things that we want to do for the residents that we've started or had planned that we're not doing. So for us to cut anywhere, we're already bare boned. So
Yeah, because your budget is what, about 1/5 of ours?
our budget, yeah.
About 1/5, and you're taking a bigger raise than us. Adam, is there money we're turning back to the town we can prepay some bills with so we wouldn't have them next year?
Right now, as I mentioned earlier, when talking with Chris, we're looking at balances, and traditionally, we've made sure that we're trying to reduce next year's budget increase by using any savings that we might have. But I won't know until June how much I would be able to return to the town. But we're projecting that there will be some savings that we would return.
You're projecting about how much?
At this point in time, I'm not sure. It could be a range.
And prepaid bills, we could probably come in at the zero they want, that Chris and Megan want. That's all I'm saying. If we kept up instead of giving money back, pay up any bills we can ahead of time. Fill oil tanks, fill gas tanks, fill etc. Without cutting anything out of this upcoming budget. We'd be
You're
able-
saying a 0% budget.
Huh?
So Kathy, you're
If we can take our savings from this year, prepay some things and be able, we're talking 39,000 increase, right?
yes.
So are we projecting maybe 39, over 30 this year? At leftover projecting. I know none of us know we didn't think we'd be paying the bus drivers in Paris every day. Well,
Yes.
then we could cut back wherever you think you can prepay, cut back those numbers and get to zero. How does that sound to people?
That sounds better, but we still have the $86,000 cut we should chip away at from the state as well. Because that's going
I
to
don't know if we can do that now.
as
Yeah,
well.
Chris,
I don't know.
we've had a tight budget to begin with. It started out at what, 69 and slowly chipped
63,
away.
yeah.
63. We've worked really hard to chip away and to keep a really tight budget. And you know, Adam is, I've seen communication. There's just lots and lots of communication over tightening this budget to the best we can. Similar to what Tracy says, within our guidelines of contractual areas that we need to maintain, we're all here and absolutely appreciate the comments that we need to do with what we can for every single taxpayer in this town during this time. And the really hard part, which I'm hearing a lot through some of the town comments, is this unknown, which we really don't know what we won't have. And there is this cut, Chris, clearly, that we are factoring in. But I think being creative with that, as Kathy suggests, is something we should consider. But I just don't want it to be left, you know, without notice that we have been working to chip away and chip away and chip away to get creative on this, to get as low as we can. And we'll work with the town as best we can.
In the revenue side of what's happening with the town budget, for the special ed reimbursement, the town, had zero as far as income is concerned. And with the money that we've returned to the town, we've already returned $30,035. And that was not added into the revenue for the town. If you look at that, then the difference with the ECS cut is not 89,000. It's, a little less. And there could be another allocation that's coming in on that. And then I also noticed that the magnet school has stayed the same at 6,500. So there are some savings that we will have, but please believe me that next year's budget projection for, as we do the process for 21, 22, there are some built-in savings there. If you want to have a zero budget, then we would have to put together money from any accounts that we might be saving, whether it be diesel fuel for the buses or other funds, and pay off the buses out of this year's budget, or try to, and then that would bring us to a 0% budget. But if we go below zero, there's beg your pardon?
The idea of paying off all the bus this year gives us zero. That'd be good. We're going to town with a zero budget. If we can, with that, instead of returning money to the town, pay off the buses this year, we won't have that next year in our budget. If we can manage that somehow. I didn't even think of that, but pay off the buses completely this year. That takes it out of next year's budget and brings us to zero.
Well, we wound up doing that in the 2016-17 bus year because we made a double bus payment because we were facing $1 million cut.
Yeah.
Yes, that didn't happen.
What, the $1 million cut?
No, it didn't. They only cut us, well, they cut us
well,
300 and something.
We're looking at just now to give us 0. It seems like that would go well, I think, with the town going to a 0. So that would be one way if we could pay it off with some of these savings that we're getting instead of giving them back, use them for our budget to keep it at 0 for the towns.
Now, remember too, with the expenditures that we've had to increase some technology.
I think there's going to be a lot of stuff going forward. Adam dropped off.
Budget time would be a great time to drop out of the meeting if it was going to happen.
Like, I think mine's getting staticky.
Well, I'm sure Tracy isn't happy because this is just going to increase her budget.
Yeah,
If you don't get money back, I mean, it's Peter robbing Paul, but it's kind of, if we're set on the town education point of view, that's kind of what we got to do.
Tracy, do you anticipate and build that as part of your budget that we typically give you money back?
It's accounted for in the revenue. So anything that we get from grants or anything, we don't anticipate really getting the unspent money back at the end of the year, but any money that the school gets in grants or funding or any of that is all accounted for in our revenue. The money that we get back at the end of the year, I think last year was like, what, $12,000 or something. It's not usually really that much from the budget. But anything else?
But not to get into the minutia of it, but I mean, this year is also reval. So everybody's houses are going up. So, I mean, there's also going to be an offset of that when your house is valued higher, even with the mill rate. You know, historically in Voluntown, mill rate's actually gone down years of reval.
Yeah, I think that doesn't show up until next year.
Yeah, but I mean, at least it's something to anticipate with this COVID situation, with people just not even going to be able to pay their taxes or their mortgage payments, you know?
Yep.
But in fairness, that's not, I mean, not to sound like a butt face, but like it's not expected right now. You know what I mean? Like, we don't know when it's going to be expected, do we?
The what?
He's
anyway. Yeah, no, we don't know when anything is going to be inspected.
We don't know. So, I mean, that could be in December. So, you know what I mean? Like, it's very hard to build this budget. And I think this is every town. It's not just Voluntown. But like, it's very hard to build a budget with so much unknown. Like, there's so much crazy business going on. Chris, it surprises me that you would suggest a mental health worker to be reduced with your background and what you have come to the board requesting. So that's a surprise for me. You always shock me. But, you know, it's just a surprise for me because, in my opinion, I think we're going to need mental health more than anything. We're going to be receiving children, hopefully in August, probably not, but hopefully in August, that, you know, haven't had proper schoolings for 6 months. Can you imagine their mental health at that point? Like, that's shocking to me. I don't disagree with you and Megan, but I just don't think that that's the area to do it in.
Do you have contact with me?
Yes, we do.
Okay, I don't see my picture on the screen. It's off to the
I
side.
see you.
That's right. Thank you. So the issue here is that can you get to zero? Yes, you can. There's some things that we were looking at that we might try to do as we're toward the end of the year. But again, I said that there's possibilities of 75% of 86,000 coming in from the federal government. And there's the CARE grant that just was released today by the governor, and that's 32,700. The other thing that we have to be careful of is that there's a minimum budget expenditure requirement. And if we go too low, for every dollar we go below the minimum budget requirement, they reduce our ECS grant by $2. So there's some things that can happen with that. If we go to zero, that means that the increases in our budget over the last year, if you add them all up, will mean that we have actually come under budget because a few years ago we had a higher budget. So we have been cutting each year.
I realize times are tight. I'm as tight as anybody. I'm not working right now because of COVID and my age. I have grandchildren I'm raising, whatever. It's tight here and everywhere. But I think our primary duty is to the children in that building. More, and then secondary to the taxpayer. And in my mind, it's third to the employees, whatever, as you go down the line. I think our first thing, I definitely think we need a full-time social worker, counselor, whatever you want to call it, because there's a certain amount, I understand, of paperwork with with these positions, and that paperwork is going to be shifted to somebody, and it'd probably be you or Amy will be doing it, is what will happen. So if you think we can cut safely, if we can't, then we'll have to go with your thinking. You've been very fair with budgets for years. We have not padded budgets since Adam was here. There is no
any money.
Budgets.
Well, you know, there's one other thing here, and I'm looking at the town budget report, revenue report, and for special ed, it has zero for 4 years in a row. And I know for a fact last year we had something like $42,000 come in. And this year we've already had $30,000 come in. And we budget full price for special ed, and then the monies are supposed to go into the town. It would be nice, Tracy, if we could go back and take a look at those revenues, because we spent that money, and then the state gave reimbursement, yet it's not reflected in your revenue portion.
Right. Julie and I just talked about that.
Well, I mentioned that earlier. So,
yeah.
You know, I would like to get a little bit of credit, you know, for those funds that we have with following through with grants. And as you know, we do take advantage of grants and other types of things. I mean, the other day, I called up a friend who has an $88 million budget. And I said, hey, Mike, do you realize you're going to get $677,000 from the federal government out of the CARES Act? And it was really interesting because he checked the resource that I gave him, and that was a big help for his budget as well. So we try to take care of, you know, taking advantage of any grant that's available. But please remember, if there's anything that comes in, like this CARES Act, Connecticut received $111 million. Hartford gets $10 million, almost $11 million, and we get $32,700. So there's the distribution where somehow in the formula, Voluntown is getting less. Sprague gets $74,000. Griswold gets $260 something dollars. So that we have to make adjustments for not getting as much. But that money is not in the revenue section yet. So there's some additional money that we can use to get by for next year. And if there's a real challenge with the income and other things that's happening and we have to have a meeting, we're going to have to go back and take a look at where we can do cost savings.
I believe often why we don't get as much money is we don't spend. If you don't spend, they don't give you any. If you're
Well, we don't have any debt. That's
that's
one
the
of the
problem.
things that we
Don't
worked on.
we
Yeah.
don't have debt. If we had debt, we'd be getting money.
Well, not only that, it's our free and reduced ratio is also very low. So when you're looking at giving out money, you know, areas that have a higher rate of free and reduced, they typically get more money.
This budget proposal cuts out two positions. It cuts out the tutorial position, and it also cuts out the school counselor position. And we've consolidated some services, and we're looking. So if I have to go back through to present a zero budget, then I would have to look at ways to maybe make an early bus payment so that we don't have that. But the other thing that's happening is we non-renewed 8 teachers, and within a zero budget, because I thought this question was coming up, 6 of those teachers are in the budget, and if it was a 0% increase, then I would want to see us rescind the non-renewal notices, and we'll get by with a 0% budget for the next year.
Now, was there any money that you were looking at from this year's budget that wasn't going to be spent, that was going to be turned back at all to offset any of the mill rate increase?
What do you mean, Tracy?
Like money that's not spent from this year that you haven't planned for next year, or any of the money, like when Chris said before, of not being opened and.
Well, I need a little bit more time to, prepare for, some of those savings, because as I said, I'll tell you right now, we used up the dime oil contract, and we're not going to, not dime, but the bid contract for the 16,000 gallons. We purchased those because we had the oil tank replacement project, and we had to fill the tank. And right now, if we want to buy from that company, it costs almost $1 more than buying it from the local, oil company. So I want to go with the local oil company next year, so I can have better flexibility with managing the budget. And while I'm talking about the oil tank replacement project, we're still waiting for probably $130,000 back from the state to pay their portion of the oil tank replacement project. So as I go through all of these monies, and you're going to believe that I'll put that down on the budget the moment I find out what that amount is. So we're returning money to the town and trying to be as frugal as possible. Did anybody hear that? Okay.
Yeah, I heard that.
We heard you, Adam.
We have to make a decision today because there's going to be a public hearing with the budget. It's May 26, I believe, and then we're going to have a town meeting. So we need to propose or have the board approve a budget proposal to bring to the budget hearing, and we'll post that online for the citizens to review. They have the hearing, and then we have to go. Perhaps by that time, I might have a little bit more understanding of what we might return to the town.
Now, how about those, the rescinding of the non-renewals? Is that a separate motion at this point?
It's a separate item a little bit later, yes, but
Okay.
One of the things you're thinking about not having as many teachers, Adam, because they're talking about forcing schools to have small classes for social distancing. So if we start trying to combine classes, we're probably going to have a problem.
well, that's why we proposed this budget the way it is, so that we could handle any social distancing and also accommodate some of the requirements to keep separation for the COVID, because that's a health and safety issue.
Yeah, you can't have 30 kids in a class.
We
Yes,
already
and
have some of the, we already
We're
have
gonna
some of the smallest classes in the state as it is right now, if you look at the state average,
Well-
what other towns run. So I would think it wouldn't be a problem to do social distancing Plus, we have
Well,
declining enrollment in addition to some of the smallest classes in the state. In fact, we have
also have
less
one lot
students than some private schools do in their classes.
private schools always have bigger classes than the private schools.
The other thing to keep in mind is that come September, if you go in with your budget, come September, there's these crazy rules from the governor that we just absolutely can't accommodate what we have. We can always go back to the town and ask for more money. And again, this is unprecedented time, so if we go back and it's a little bit of an easier story to tell when we know what those guidelines are than just going into it saying, you know, next year we might have even smaller class sizes and asking for more money now versus actually having a story to tell people, hey, we had to increase this and get more money for this because Governor Lamont said we can't have any more than 5 kindergartners for the teacher or something crazy along those lines. I mean, this isn't the end of the road if we are facing something so critical that we just absolutely can't function as a school.
Is it just me or is Megan really hard to hear?
I couldn't really hear.
Okay.
I know.
Yeah, that was difficult.
I'm sorry. You sounded like you were underwater and drowning.
Yeah.
Is this better?
Yes,
Yeah.
it is.
Yes.
That was weird. No, I was just saying we also have to understand that going in, if we are able to go in with a zero budget and then come September, Governor Lamont has some crazy rules that we just absolutely can't accommodate. We can always go back to the town and ask for more money. I think it's an easier story to tell, you know, saying, hey, look, we were trying to do the best we can to do right by the taxpayers, but Lamont has, you know, given us these really strict regulations. We just can't do it with what we have. And at that time, ask for the money, then speculating, you know what, this is coming down the pike. Let's get the money from people now that already can't afford their tax payments. You know, it's not like it's the door closing on any opportunity to get funding that we need to accommodate whatever's going to come down the line in September.
You know, I'm fairly new to these budget discussions, so just bear with me for a second because I want to go back to what Kristen was saying before about all of these unknowns. So if we have all of these unknowns, are we able to shave off, Adam, you were saying we're able to shave off some areas that are not so intrusive to a child's education or to a child's functioning in a school, like a social worker, like a school counselor or teacher position? Like, where is it that we can just slightly shape? Can we have that discussion? I feel like you're taking a big chunk and removing it versus looking at smaller areas where we can shave off versus making a huge leap of removing.
Please remember, during the last 3 years, we've had cuts. We removed a full-time assistant principal. We didn't replace a teacher. We're not going to have a tutor next year. We've reduced the time of the school counselor. So there have been cuts that we've been chipping away. We've had some reductions in transportation due to some efficiencies. And we have some projected future savings coming up. It's this coming year that's the challenge. And if we can get by this year, and if we have to be frugal with looking at trying to save money, we look to do that. But we have to see what happens with the reopening of the economy and the other things that are happening.
Adam, what about paras and other support positions?
We'll have to take a look at that. Yes.
Lunch staff, those people.
There's things that we might wind up trimming, trimming away with that, and there's things that we could look at.
One of the main things we as a board should do is really encourage all the people who would be eligible for free lunch to at least sign up for it. We would get more money back from the state and the feds every year because people
the free and reduced lunch over the last couple of years has gone from 21% to 33%. And for next year, I think it's going to rise significantly. And that might help with our formula for funding.
That'll help the funding formula. I think paying the bus this year or deferring it next year is our best bet. I would like to see it paid with whatever we have left this year, Adam. I don't know where you could squeeze it out of.
Well, there's areas that I said that we're saving, like some of the diesel fuel for the buses and some other areas. We haven't had to have substitutes. And what we're doing is going through the budget and looking and seeing ways that we can prepare for, the upcoming challenges.
Half of it this year, defer it to the next year, not next year's budget, but the following year, the final payoff.
No, I wouldn't want to do that. I would want to get it out of the way now because I don't think that we would have this opportunity. I have more of an opportunity right now with going through the budget and looking for savings. And if Megan is saying that, zero, I think that we're just going to have to go in with a zero and do what we can and maintain the programs that we have. So,
the bus is, I think, the main thing. It wouldn't affect the functionality.
No, I want to maintain. We rescinded. We non-renewed 8 positions, and we're asking that you rescind the non-renewals on 6 of those. So those are the kinds of savings that we're trying to develop.
So, Adam, I guess functionally, you want to present us with a zero tonight, or we have to have a special meeting? I realize this has got a timeline. It's got to get done shortly.
Well, if the board votes to approve a 0% budget as developed by the superintendent, you would see some of the money coming out of that bus payment. So you take the 55,000, the 50,000 that we have in there. It would probably read, transportation would take the. What have I got in the budget? There's 52,000 in there. So what would happen is I would pay off the balance. I would take the 39,063 from that account. And that means all of the insurances, the teachers, the paraprofessionals that we need, the supplies and materials would stay the same. And I would focus on getting some savings through that.
Go to like essential.
If there's a zero increase on the school, we can manage the no mill increase. We can cover the 52,000 from the general fund.
Well, you wouldn't. We're taking it from the budget, so you wouldn't make the payment. We would pay it out of this year's savings.
Right.
We'd pay 39. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we'd pay 52,000 out of this year's savings. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But I would take it to zero.
Tracy, you're saying if we go with a zero school budget, then that's essentially going to be a 0 mil increase for the community, correct?
Yeah. If the other selectmen agree, we can do that.
Okay, I think that would make an incredible difference and help to the people of this community, honestly, in this time.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion for a 0% budget increase as determined by the superintendent.
Second.
All right, all in favor for a 0% budget increase for the 2021 budget as approved by the determined by the superintendent. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion passes.
I have to say, Chris and Megan, it's going to make a difference of about $1.12 in people's tax bill. It's not going to, they're not going to see any change really from it and stuff, but it seemed very important to you guys to present that. I'm just saying that it will be presenting a zero and they're going to pay the difference out of the rainy day.
I think for a morale in this time, I'm okay with that. I can't speak for Chris, but one less thing that people have to worry about, whether it's, people don't necessarily see it. It comes out of their mortgage payment, or they have to get the money out of the bank to pay their taxes. And even if it's just a morale of knowing that that's one thing that they're not going to have to come up with, I think that we're doing right by people. That's my opinion.
I agree, but I want to also echo the fact that we adding back the non-renewal, and the school is our community. It is the absolute beacon of our togetherness, and in addition to the community and the town that we live in, the school is so important. So I also want to send the message that we are supportive of the programs that we do have, and we are trying our very best, but in good partnership with the town, we are doing our very best with the 0% budget. So
thank you. And I appreciate that, Kate, as well.
Thanks.
I think the 0% budget is good. I do, and I'm grudgingly excited, voted for it, but I still think the $86,000 cut should be made up. And in the school, we have to start looking strictly at education and start looking at things that are social feel-good programs and make hard decisions on cutting those, because our main focus, as Kathy said, is to educate children, and that should be our first and foremost consideration. And social construction and being a beacon is all well and good. However, in these times, we need to focus on our mandate only, which is education.
That isn't our only mandate. If you read what we're mandated to do, social is a huge part of their success. You can be, social is tremendously important for people to succeed in life. And so going forward, we'll have a whole nother discussion next year. Hopefully this.
Okay, and within the minutes of the board meeting, I am going to put down that our budget, I'm going to have to revise the description, because that means that over the last 4 years, our budget has actually had about a minus $12,000 increase. If you add up all of the budgets and the decreases and increases, so we have actually had a no increase budget.
And I'd like to see that the other towns.
Oh no.
Okay, so sorry, losing my place here in terms of our next up. So we analyze the budget development process. Are we moving on to the J1 request, or was there other comments?
I just put down the minutes. This request can't be processed due to the many travel and other restrictions related to the executive orders by the government because of COVID-19. There may be interest in a future review of such requests when we return to normalcy in a healthy environment.
I think that's fair. What do others think?
That's all we can do at this point. I couldn't even consider having a foreign student in the program unless the board feels differently.
No, I don't think we can right now, unfortunately.
And I will tell you this, that if we do that, we may save some money in tuition for next year.
Do you need a motion for that, Adam?
So,
no, unless there's a consensus, but I don't know. I mean, you know, we can't afford it too. You know, it's it just doesn't make any sense. And the person that's making the request hasn't called me or contacted me, but these are extraordinary times. I don't know how to do that.
I agree.
Yeah,
And I don't know even if this person could get in the country.
Well, it's, you know, we can't be making some last minute, you know, accommodations.
And stuff. So I
Yeah,
agree.
I think for now that's our position. Yeah, I don't want to be closed-minded about it for future thoughts and discussion. So I want people to you know, maybe put a pin in it, knowing that these are extraordinary times.
And I will send a note to the person if they want to send another letter saying they want the board to reconsider it. We could look at that, but I have received nothing in the last 2 months with regards to this. And in the past, I had been receiving communications almost weekly.
Okay. We'll move along to number 3, the an update on the Wheeler High School evaluation.
Okay, I sent you a description of my letter to the superintendent in North Stonington stating that what we wanted to happen in a contract, and what happened is North Stonington made this accommodation to pay tuition for days attended on a prorated basis. The Griswold contract doesn't have that. The NFA contract doesn't have that. This is actually the cost savings because we would only pay for, you know, the days that attended if a student withdrew. Because if a student withdraws from Griswold on October 15th, we still have to pay the full tuition for the rest of the year. And they pay a tuition. And NFA, if the population goes down, which it is, we have to pay for the number of kids that are there this year. So we're going to recognize a savings next year on the NFA tuition, but North Stonington has done so many things to accommodate it. So in my note to you, I said maybe this can be a first reading. You could go through the contract, but they put in the things that we had requested, and this is one of the most significant breakthroughs in high school tuitions that I've seen in the last 14 years. This is amazing. And North Stonington has a smaller high school, so that we would have some students that might view that as a viable choice. And then there's Griswold and then NFA. So to me, we might get some cost savings out of this as well.
Has Fred looked at this contract?
As what?
Did
Yeah,
Fred look
he's
at it?
looking at it now. That's why we'll have a second reading at the next meeting. So all this is just a first reading in the minutes, and then we'll take a look at a second reading. And then if the board approves that, then Amy and the 8th grade staff would get together, and Lloyd and the teachers. And if we have our open house, North Stonington, that would give them time to plan because they have their first information meeting starting in September. And also, those first information meetings at the open house are open up to any parent who wants to come in to check out our high schools.
So it wouldn't be this year,
No, it would
It
have
would
to be for 21, 22.
entering in 21. Okay,
22. So, but we should approve it this year because our planning process for the students to make the decision starts in September.
good, good. Do you need a vote on this? Or?
No, it's just, this is just a first reading. So the next, you know, the next meeting we would look and you could review that.
Okay, so we'll do that. We'll move along to number 4, 2019-20 Board Education Performance and Self-Evaluation.
Yes, there were some things that were added that the board is dealing with COVID-19. That's important to document this. This is just another reading. We don't have to approve of this until, you know, maybe even July, just so that there's a recording of what you accomplished this year. So this is just like a third reading. And if you have any input, you know, please feel free to, you know, send notes to either Kate or myself. and we'll see what we can do to upgrade our evaluation.
Okay. So we'll continue that as a third reading. And then we have, moving on to our regulation number 5, it's 4112 spot 51, employment reference checks. This is a third reading. I didn't notice anything specific that was from a revision, but if anyone else has comments on it.
Motion.
I was worried you couldn't hear me. Can everyone hear me? Thumbs up?
Yes, yeah, the motion,
Okay.
yeah. Do we-
We need a motion to approve regulation 4112 spot 51.
Motion.
Thank you, Kristen. Second,
I'll second.
Megan? Great. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. These are odd times to do this motion stuff. So number 6 is the capital improvement plan.
Yes, in the capital improvement plan, I revised that, and I would like a motion on this to approve the superintendent's recommendation to take care of capital improvement projects within the operating budget and delay any capital improvements, sending any financial requests to the town for capital improvements in 2020, 21, 22. This again is an area where we cut back, and there's just a couple of items that were put into the capital improvement plan.
Motion.
Need a motion? Is there a second?
Second. Kristen.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we'll move on to number 7, the non-renewal of non-tenured teachers.
Yes, these positions are in the budget. I think that there would be a sigh of relief to these 6 teachers for next year. So that would be Allison Page, Emily Penman, Kayla Barad, Amanda Gould, Chelsea Burns, and Kathleen Groth. So you would have to take a motion on each individual based on the non-renewal that we did in a couple of months ago in March. But with this, I would inform these people that they are within the budget and we're bringing them back for the following school year.
Who's the
Okay,
first name?
I'll start the process. So we'll need a motion to rescind the previous Board of Ed motion to non-renew the following: Allison Page.
Motion.
Motion. I'll second.
Second.
Kristen.
Okay. Kristen, Kathy. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. We need a motion to rescind the previous Board of Ed motion to non-renew Emily Penman.
Motion.
Motion.
Second. Kristen.
Kristen. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Need a motion to rescind the previous Board of Ed motion to non-renew Kayla Berard's contract.
Motion.
Second. Kristen.
Kathy. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Need a motion to rescind the previous Board of Ed contract for Amanda Gould.
Motion.
On favor? Oh, sorry.
Oh.
Kathy, got it.
Second. Kristen.
And Kristen. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Fourth motion to rescind the previous Board of Ed motion to non-renew the contract for Chelsea Burns.
Motion.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
In favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We'll need a final motion to rescind the previous Board of Ed motion to non-renew the contract for Kathleen Broth.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you all. All right, moving ahead. That is a great sigh of relief for those teachers. So is the last item, Adam, the 8th grade graduation?
I think what we'll do is we'll just make a statement in the minutes stating that the principal and the 8th grade staff will develop an appropriate experience for our 8th graders to recognize their graduation. And we're not going to set a date. We'll just schedule. Did you have a date in mind, Amy, or it has to be flexible at this point?
We are going to have their diplomas printed with the last date of school, and then the actual date that we're able to arrange everything will just be flexible for that. But the diploma will be the last date of school, and then that week we will. It's probably going to be the first week of June. That's what I'm hoping.
Okay, so if there's a motion, it would be to authorize the principal and staff to develop an appropriate graduation activity.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Amy, is there a way,
Opposed?
maybe this is a dumb question, but is there a way to because the class is relatively small, I mean, could we do something for them like on the Constitution field and have like squares spray painted for like even not necessarily have family, is there a way to do something outside and just have no contact?
Every time we read the governor's orders, they're always different. I thought we were coming out with this on graduation, but I could be wrong, and provide some guidelines. We did talk about that, and then we ran into, well, what if, like you come up with all these scenarios that could happen. But we did talk about like going actually even in the back, and trying to set something up and trying to stage it correctly. It just depends on what the state is allowing for crowds per se. That's where it always comes into,
Yeah, because I know even attending your like trimester awards, it seems like a lot of times families congregate in their own areas anyway. So I think, if the governor would allow for it, I think you guys probably could do it and people wouldn't mind, wearing their masks. And obviously you wouldn't be able to have the students come up and present them. But it was just something that I was wondering if that's a possibility. Thankfully, we do have a small 8th grade, and we have that big Constitution field. It was just an idea that, would be really nice and something that I think a lot of towns don't have the luxury to be able to do if, like you said, the governor would allow for it.
And I think we'll know more in like the next, couple of weekly. And we are small enough where we're not gathering 500 kids to graduate. I mean, we're really just graduating 34 families. So it is a little bit different for us because we can do that and assemble quite quickly because most people are home, in reality. So we have talked about that too. So we'll see. We'll definitely do pictures because that's always, a rite of passage in those pieces. So if we're able to assemble it, in June, it's a possibility. We've talked about it. See if we could.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay, thank you.
Kate? Kate, can you hear me?
Yes.
I don't know if you've heard, but I read today in the paper, NFA is going to use Dodge Stadium, and families are going to stay in their cars. So
Well, we hope.
that's something to review. People could be in their cars in the parking lot in front of the school and do something. At least the car creates the separation of the space kind of thing.
Right.
But anyway, I just thought I'd throw it out there.
I completely agree. We should do something too, because this is a huge milestone for these kids. They're leaving our little town and going into a big high school, and friends are gone. And yeah, we really should do something to recognize that.
I think there's going to be something very special. And remember, I've already signed the diplomas, and we have gowns that are going to be ready. And whatever the faculty comes up, magic happens, because there's going to be something very special. And I'm looking forward to what the faculty comes up with Amy.
And as my first year on the board, I don't know how this works, but Amy, if you guys decide to do something, just let us know or let me know. I'd love to attend, to see it. It would be nice to see some positivity, I think, with so much terrible news going on out there. So please let me know.
And we did talk about, like if we had to do it inside, how could we have, it is typical for us to always have the board, always invite board members. We sit on the stage, like a lot of those things, are just so different. So how could we, is Kate going to present? Is somebody else going to read it? If that's the case, we definitely can still, whether it's inside or outside, still do those things so we can, share in that, because, the board is the one who support those kids, throughout their education. So it is important to us when we have board members come and townspeople come. So.
All right,
I
thanks. Yeah, I wasn't sure if that was typical or not. Thank you.
Yes, very typical.
I
You
was
will be
thinking,
invited, Megan.
hopefully by the fall, we can get together in a group somewhat. Perhaps we could have the dinner dance some weekend night in the fall. Send them all out something.
That's another is the banquet that they're missing out on. Yeah.
Okay. We could do the banquet in the fall, higher 8th grade reunion, graduation, whatever dance, you're all back, because they're still all in contact with each other when they first sleep.
Yes.
And stuff.
Are there any more comments on the graduation? Oh, my mind's stirring. Like I absolutely have like 17 ideas now. We talked about it, but I'll table that for another time to give you my Dropbox of suggestions. How we socially distance and do a proper graduation. So I think we are moving on to new business now, Adam.
Yes.
You have some updates on COVID-19.
All I did was I entered in a statement in the board minutes, unprecedented, challenging times due to the COVID pandemic. School districts have been closed since March 16th. Our faculty has definitely displayed the ability to effectively work together to implement a number of strategies to maintain an effective education program. Special thank you to our faculty, staff, parents, and above all the students to maintain and implement this program. That's just a statement that's in the minutes. That's all that I did with that. Everything we've been talking about is laced with COVID-19 challenges.
Yeah, it's an important topic, obviously, to continue to keep on our agenda, though. I know that you've kept us all up to date, and you and Amy and the staff have done a great job with that, but we shouldn't, just assume that it's not an important agenda item. So thank you. Moving on to number 2, FEMA.
Yes, with FEMA, we talked about we've requested that our school district, we've submitted a municipal COVID information request to the town as part of a request form for the state office and policy management. And we list possible items for 75% reimbursement. Currently, the list is at $86,728. And we will see what happens if this money comes in. Any money comes in, it would be deposited in the town account. That's just a statement put in the minutes.
Okay. Any questions on that? We'll move on to number 3, the emergency relief funds, or
Yes.
ESSER.
Yes, this is called the CARES Act. It's the Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund. The governor just had a statement about the $111,068,059 that came into the state. And I just state that Voluntown is listed to receive $32,727. I put down Hartford receives the $10,000,003. Barkhamsted received the lowest amount at $6,905. So it's just a statement so that it records it in the board minutes that that's something that we're reviewing and monitoring.
Okay. Moving on to the social worker job description.
Yes.
This is the first reading.
Yes, it is. And what we did was researched the possibility of combining those positions. And there's been advertisements and other types of things for, you know, a social worker, counselor. The board has the authority to combine different positions to allow for flexibility. And the certifications for each position allows us to have this option. So the board is making that determination. And this is the job description that we went through. And it's a blending together of the old job description that the town has. And it's to increase the social worker by 1.0 FTE. So this is a first reading, and that's the job description of what they would be doing. And you can read through that. If there's any suggestions or other types of things that you have, please let us know. And as per board guidelines, we have a first reading, and then in June, this would be placed on the agenda for a second reading and approval.
We all in agreement with that? Okay.
So
we'll move that to the June meeting for a final sign off on the social worker job description.
I would like to request, and we can go back, but I would like to request that there be a number added, and maybe even number 1 about maintaining confidentiality. I know that's very standard among teachers and educators, but this job in particular handles a completely different area of confidentiality. So I do think having that carved out as its own bullet point is important.
okay, thank you.
Noted. Okay, moving on to the Board of Education mission statement. This is an update. I think we'll just treat this as a first reading. Adam, in the packet provided you with, it's on every agenda. If you've ever noticed it, it's at the back of the end of the agenda, but it gives our Board of Education mission statement. And as I've read it, I just, it's from 2004, and I felt like it was in our best interest to just give it a refresh and our thoughts behind the mission of our board. So I did think about this for a little bit, and and sent you guys some options. If you just take a look at that and review vis-a-vis what we currently have and send me any comments or, you know, your own thoughts on it, that'd be great. And then we can discuss it for next meeting. And likewise for the goals, Adam.
Yes.
That's the first reading for us, right? Or is that, have we had those up?
It's probably okay and under these circumstances with the wavering of the teacher evaluation system for this year that we wait until the June meeting. But if you have any suggestions for the board's goals, please you know, send them in to either Kate or myself.
Back to the mission statement, there should be something in there about civic duties or duties as a citizen, because math and a general knowledge of science are specifically mentioned. There's nothing about the skills needed to be basically a citizen of this country to participate in forums like this.
Right. I was thinking, Chris, yeah, I didn't care for the line items of, you know, math, science. I didn't, you know, and that we would be basically learning, you know, have a basic proficiency. I didn't care for that either. So I lean towards basically, you know, having that builds the character and the leadership skills and things like that. So just have a look at what, you know, some of the wording that we did, but certainly would some of your thoughts on that.
When we did this originally, we had a whole separate, I think it was even day, like a Saturday, we got together and worked on the mission statement and goals and the idea of goals and stuff. But we spent a separate thing on mission. Everybody kind of brought their ideas to the table and we sat around and tried to bang out something that covered a lot of it, but maybe not everything, because you don't want your mission to be too long or too short. But maybe we could set, once things get settled, set a second meeting for some month to work on it.
That's an idea too, Kathy. Okay, I'll note that. All right. So so we'll move ahead with suggestions for the next meeting. So our next meeting is scheduled to be June 11th.
I have a long
Do you
list.
need a motion?
Sorry.
Kate, I think we have to.
We don't need a
Kate, I think we have to approve something first. It's the IDA.
I'm sorry, when is the town meeting on the budget? It's when?
June 9th.
Usually right after.
No,
Huh?
there is no town meeting. The governor doesn't want town meetings because of the spacing and everything. There's a public hearing on May 26th with both the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Education. Will be doing a Zoom meeting so that the public can ask questions, but it's the Board of Selectmen that approves the budget this year. There's no voting, and that's per the governor.
Okay. Oh, all right. So we're not going to have to vote on anything.
No.
No, we'll have the 26th. We got to do a Zoom meeting like this.
Yeah,
Yes.
it'll be a Zoom meeting, and
Okay.
it'll be with the Board of Ed and the Board of Selectmen, and the public will be able to ask questions and stuff. So it'll be
Okay.
like the public hearing. So
Yeah.
Sorry, I was rushing us. There's a number 7 for authorized submittal of idea grant.
Yes, the IDEA grant, it's an annual grant that has been submitted, and there's funds in there that pays for one special education teacher. The motion would be to authorize the superintendent to submit the IDEA grant, and that's for number 611 and 619. Those are the numbers of the grant. And the funds that we receive, 611, we are scheduled to receive $77,226. And the 619, we received $3,040. And we have been receiving this grant for years, and we use it to pay for one special education teacher.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Just the word grant should be enough to.
Oh boy. Grant us these funds. So where I was going with, so we will have a budgetary hearing, but that's not our next official Board of Ed meeting, which is on
No,
June
the next
11th.
official, is June 11th.
Okay. So I think suggestions are discussing the budget. Any changes there are Wheeler, the self-eval, which we'll do again, and the mission statement and the goals, as well as any further readings. So, okay. I'll need a motion to adjourn or move to executive session.
Motion.
Second.
Okay, thank you, Lloyd. Thank you, Amy.
Okay,
All right,
I'm
well,
gonna stop,
I'm leaving too.
And,
Thank you, guys.
I'm gonna stop the
Katie,
recording and
yeah,
live.
I will call you up with what happens in executive session.
Okay,
Thank
let me
you. Thank you for everything you guys do. Bye.
Oh, thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye.
hang on, I'm
Okay.
stopping things here.
Katie, I'll contact